Welcome. I'm Steve Thorndale of the Student Achievement Council. We are delighted to have you with us for our second day of this webinar series designed for new financial aid administrators for 2 or less years experience. However, we know that there are many on the webinar who have more years of experience, and we're happy to have them as well. And yesterday we had about 50 persons and 50 persons individually registered, and we know there are multiple numbers of people in some staffs, and that's a great way to be able to work on this together in kind of a team approach. At the conclusion of the webinars, we'll send out PDF versions of the 2 PowerPoints that we've used, and within about a week we'll post to the website on the Financial Aid Resources page the copies of the 2 webinars. So we are so pleased to be your partners in the work that you're doing to help students finance their educational costs at your institutions so they can work towards their degrees and credentials, which will help them in the world of work and advancing their own careers. Many financial aid offices have anywhere from a few to many staff involved in this work. Because our presentations cover all of the responsibilities that institutions need to know, you may find that there's some information that you are not going to be involved with directly. But then you never know for sure where your next job will be or what those responsibilities might be. So we highly recommend that you learn as much as you can. By doing so, you'll be more valuable to your institution and certainly to the students you're working with in terms of addressing their own needs and concerns. So we're going to move along here. Seems like all right. My co-presenters today are Carissa Glassburn and Victor Fernandez. They're both on the scholarship team for State Need Grant College Bound Scholarship. And so without further ado, we're going to move into having Victor in a moment talk about the Cruncher. You'll see that the agenda for today, in addition to the Cruncher, the CBS Cruncher, we've got Passport to College, Packaging State Aid, Portal Management, Reporting, Requesting Funds, State Aid Repayments, and additional resources. So we're on schedule to be done by 3 o'clock, and so let's turn this over right now to Victor, who will talk about the CBS Cruncher. Victor?
Okay, thank you, Steve. Good afternoon. So now to start today, this webinar on everyone's favorite portal tool, which is the Cruncher. We promise, though, that the Cruncher is not a head scratcher like this math equation here on this picture. So here's a quick view of the results of the Cruncher. Carissa will talk a little bit more detail on this later on in this presentation. Next slide. So the Cruncher may look like a complicated tool, but once you dive in and remain calm, it's a simple tool to use on a daily basis. So what is the CBS Cruncher? The Cruncher is a tool located in the WSAC portal. It provides colleges with a list of CBS students eligible for awarding consideration and information about students who submitted a CBS application but are not eligible. So how is the CBS Cruncher populated? New FAFSAs and WASFAs are matched with valid CBS applications daily, and then match records will appear in the CBS Cruncher. Once the match happens, students receive a match confirmation email from the council. Also, college outreach staff may want to use the Cruncher information regarding CBS students that are identified. Also, some colleges have used the Cruncher as a way to communicate with college-bound students in regards to the timing of awarding. Crunch, crunch, crunch. How often should you crunch? Colleges should crunch frequently to identify new matches and to determine if any changes have occurred that would impact eligibility or payments. Cruncher records will continually update as Additional high school graduation and GPA data is received from these three resources. OSPI data via WSAC data matches, transcripts provided by students to the council, or colleges updating the Cruncher records for students. About 90% or so are matched through OSPI data, but not all data comes through OSPI. Students not included in the OSPI match would need to be verified by the campus before awarding. These are mainly homeschool students or private high school students. When can you start crunching to identify potentially eligible students? We say that colleges can begin crunching and awarding CBS as of October, prior to the new academic year. That's when new FAFSA and WSAC data is first received. What eligibility criteria does the Cruncher check for? The Cruncher checks for complete and valid CBS applications on file, high school graduation with at least 2.0 GPA, college enrollment within 1 year of high school graduation, CBS 5-year eligibility window. It checks for a number of quarters, semesters used, and number remaining, and it also checks if the student is in repayments. Is the college-bound Cruncher the only place we need to check to determine eligibility for CBS students? That is no. The Cruncher does not determine income and MFI eligibility and some other eligibility criteria. It is up to colleges to determine final eligibility. First is going to take over here talking about the results of the Cruncher page.
Okay, yeah, so the Cruncher is a pretty incredible tool, really. It has so many data sources, like Victor mentioned, that are feeding it. It has interim data, it's influenced by unit record data, OSPI data, college-bound application data, there's the quarters used data, so there's repayment. So there's so many different sources that are feeding into this thing. We are working with our IT staff to try and get a little bit more clarification for you all on the history side of this. So right now you can see why some changes happen if there has been a change in status. We're working to just continually improve this tool. Over the next few slides, I'm going to be talking about which students you should award, and I'm going to be referencing the OK to award and OK to pay columns. You can see the columns to the right of that, the high school grad year, the requirements met, enrollment deadline met, 5-year eligibility open, etc. Those columns, those data elements are informing those two columns on the left, the OK to award and OK to pay. So I just wanted to kind of explain that beforehand as I start talking through who you should select when you're awarding. So which students should you award? For awarding, you want to identify the students who are OK to award with a yes and meet the other eligibility criteria that aren't determined by the Cruncher, such as the residency, piece, MFI, etc. So OK to award yes will include valid college-bound applicants. So they've submitted an application to us in the 7th or 8th grade, and they are likely to meet the high school requirements, which is the graduation from a Washington high school with a 2.0, and they're also meeting the time frame requirements. So we base that OK to award yes and the high school requirements met likely on OSPI data from their junior year in high school. So if they have a GPA of at least 2.0 by their junior year, we will reflect them as OK to award. If it's below 2.0, they will show as not likely. And of course, that could change during their senior year. They could become eligible once we get updated information from OSPI. So you as the colleges, you're not required to verify high school requirements or the enrollment deadline met for students that remain likely. So say for students that don't come through the OSPI match or we never received confirmation that they graduated, you do not have to go and try to verify those high school requirements or enrollment deadline met unless the student inquires. You may update the Cruncher record for high school requirements met if you receive a transcript from the student, and you can also update that enrollment deadline met field if you have information that the student enrolled at another college within 1 year of their high school graduation. Sometimes if the student enrolled at a college out of state, or a college that doesn't participate in state aid programs, there can be a delay, or sometimes we don't get the information that they enrolled somewhere else. So if you have documentation that the student did enroll somewhere within that 1 year, you can go into the Cruncher and update that to a yes. You should include college-bound award amounts on all of your award letters for those students that do show an okay to award of a yes. And you should caveat your award letters always that college-bound awards are contingent on funding and that students continue to meet all of the eligibility requirements once the term actually begins and you start making payments. So what are some reasons why students may not receive college-bound? Well, there could be additional eligibility criteria that you need to check outside of the Cruncher. So just because the Cruncher says yes, they're okay to pay, doesn't mean you can start writing checks. There's lots of other places you need to look. So a student record in the Cruncher might say yes and okay to pay yes for award and okay to pay, but ultimately they might be ineligible because their family income may exceed 65% MFI. The student's total financial aid might be greater than their need. The student doesn't meet residency or SAP, or the state commitment is met with other state aid. So a college-bound student may not receive funding in 1 year, so they may exceed, for example, that 65% MFI in 1 year, but the next year they might be back below and they would be eligible. So just 1 year doesn't determine their eligibility. Every year you would redetermine eligibility for your college-bound students. So when to disperse those funds? So how do you know when you can disperse the funds to your awarded students? You can only disperse funds to students who have a yes and the okay to pay column and that meet all those other eligibility criteria. So you want to award the student, send on your award letters to everyone that has a yes under okay to award, but you can only pay them once they have a yes under the okay to pay column. The OSPI has provided WSAC with verification that the student graduated from Washington High School with a GPA of 2.0 or better. Colleges, you may wish to manually update, like I mentioned before, that high school requirements met if you have that transcript, and just make sure that you keep everything all the documentation in the student's file. So some reasons why the student might be an okay to pay of no. So maybe they didn't meet the graduation requirements. Maybe we just haven't confirmed it yet. The student was homeschooled or graduated from a private high school, like Victor mentioned earlier, and therefore they're not included in that OSPI data. They may not have met the 1 year enrollment deadline, or they might be in repayment to another program. And lastly, they may have used up their 12 quarters or 10 semesters of their college-bound eligibility. So which college-bound Cruncher fields can you update? You have some power here. You can go in and update the fields that are tied to high school requirements and the 1 year enrollment and college deadline. So when you're confirming a 2.0 graduation requirement, collect the college transcript from the student and you can coordinate with the admissions office on campus. So if your college collects transcripts at the time of admissions, you could go ahead and use the transcript that was provided then to determine if they met the requirements. You can document high school completion or graduation, which might include those students who were homeschooled, and you can confirm enrollment in college somewhere, as I mentioned before, within that 1 year of high school graduation. So just note, if the college confirms any items in the Cruncher, you must keep that documentation in the student's financial aid file. And Anne is indicating we have a question.
Yes, there is a question from Michelle Pingree. She's asking to clarify, if a student has a 5-year limit and they are not eligible for a year, does eligibility run out in the 5-year or is it by term?
Well, they must enroll within 1 year of high school graduation. They have 5 years to use the 4-year scholarship. Does that answer her question? While Anne follows up on that, we'll see if we have any follow-up. I did want to show you the college-bound watch list. It's located on the watch list tab within the college-bound Cruncher. And so what it does is it adds your crunched SSNs to your watch list, and you will get notified of changes in eligibility for the students that you've previously searched on. So in that watch list tab, you can decide the frequency for which you get notifications, and they have the setting. You can see the settings there. So you can clear your list, you can change the frequency of how often you get emails, but it is a useful tool to monitor students that you have crunched before to see if students have changed from maybe a no to a yes. And did you have a follow-up?
Yes. Michelle has actually mentioned a couple of things. She said it said they could take a year off so it would not be used in the 5 years. And the question actually is, does it end at the 5 years no matter how much is used?
Yes. Yes. They have 5 years, and that's it. So they can take a year off, but then they only have 4 years left. So that's where that 1 year enrollment comes into play. So they have 1 year after high school graduation to enroll, and a total of 5 years from the time they graduate.
Now this, for those on the webinar yesterday, Krista was mentioning too with the college bound, because it's such a tight window that students who go full-time end up using more of their benefit over that 4 or 5 year period of time. Whereas we know in the state E-grant you can go as long as you want at whatever age, but this program is very, very tight in terms of the number of years that students have to use the program. All right, we are going to turn our attention for a few minutes to a wonderful program, the Passport to College Scholarship Program. Oftentimes you'll hear our expert on this, Dawn Cipriano McCafferty. She's off to a workshop today, or she'd be here doing this. I'm glad to share with you these 4 or 5 slides. But this program was created in 2007, actually the same year that the College Bound Scholarship Program began, to help students from foster care to attend and succeed in college. So in this program, the design is that students get up to $4,500 per year. That's a 9-month period of time, plus additional support services. They must enroll in college by age 22, and the scholarship must be used by the time age 27. It's not a huge program, but about 400 students per year receive this, and they receive collectively about $1.3 million in assistance. So this program, there are special eligibility requirements. They have to be in state dependency for at least 1 year after age 16 and in care at age 17.5 years old or time they emancipated. And they must enroll at an eligible college in Washington on at least a half-time basis. Remember, other programs allow less than that. This program, half-time or more, to be eligible for it. There are 50 colleges that have been approved to have what's called viable plans for supporting Passport students. And for those colleges, those students, they receive additional money on behalf of those students for every successful term that they've completed. So there is a contract with the College Success Foundation for student outreach, mentoring, and professional development for colleges and community supporters. So this is a good combination there of really providing as much of a safety net as you possibly can between your own staff at your own colleges, universities, and College Success that has great experience in terms of working with foster youth. So this program initiates a little bit differently in the sense of the student has to eventually fill out a passport consent form of some type. It's on either the one on the top or a common application form. So we can also hear, Dawn can also learn of the interest from data that comes off the FAFSA if they've indicated they're in foster care or and have independent filing status. So information gets funneled into us here, and there are preferences built in on programs to make sure that these youth who are as vulnerable as anybody receive the best financial aid package possible. So they are automatically auto-enrolled in the College Bound Scholarship Program if they had not signed up already as a 7th or 8th grader. So they are one exception that could enter the program after the 7th or 8th grade. And they also have priority for state need grant funding, you're to use regular funding whenever you have a foster youth. But if you find at the end of the line you're out of funds and you have a foster youth, you can contact our staff for additional funding because of this priority treatment. So the unique things to the Passport program are that the student submits the application to WSAC, and we notify the eligible students of their eligibility. They're instructed then to take that to the college that they may be attending or the institution they may be attending. Now at that point, the institution can check the portal under the Passport program, and there's a indicator there where they can put in the student's Social Security number. It's an eligibility checker for Passport scholarship. They put in the Social Security number, and if everything's okay, been approved, it will come back with a yes, and then you know that you can enter data into the portal for the scholarship award amount. So other parts of this are mostly the same as other funding that Victor and Krista have talked about. There is the last red item here, though, is that there is this Passport to College incentive program for those students who are at the schools with the viable plans. And this helps the school have additional resources to do anywhere from paying for gatherings to help students with extra textbooks if they need them. It's really up to the institution what they use these additional funds for these eligible Passport students. So we're going to go into what I consider one of the most fun sections right now, packaging state aid programs. And as I say this with a smile on my face, I know that this is complex. These programs get more and more complex every year, more and more rules and regulations. And we do need you, our partners, to learn as much as you can to make sure that you can responsibly manage these programs. So when you're packaging these programs, in a way, you have to find out first, is a student a college-bound scholar, to really kind of decide how the package will look between these three aid programs. So Victor's talked about the cruncher, how you will identify somebody if they're a college-bound scholar. So if they are, let's say for a moment that they are a college-bound scholar, then you must first award the student a maximum state need grant to that student. Then, if eligible, Passport to College. Lastly, if there's room in there, you will actually award them funding from CBS award. And we'll describe this commitment in greater detail in just a moment. If it's not a college-bound scholar, then you go a different route that the college will award SNG funds if they're available and they meet the institution's priority funding deadline. If SNG funds are not available, you have to make sure you report the student as an unserved student. It's always to your advantage to do that. Unserved students help your institutional state need grant allocation the next year just as much as a served student. So it's extremely important that unserved students be properly recorded, updated, their enrollment status is correct. Everything, they have to be as correct as a served student, just that you're monitoring them as an unserved student. And if the student is not eligible for state need grant, the college award other aid for which the student might be eligible to receive. Question?
Yes, there are two. Does the Passport student still have to meet programic requirements for college bound? And are the three programs together no more than $10,260 for this 8 year?
They still need to meet program responsibilities as far as graduating with a 2.0 and not commit a felony and all the things that other college-bound students would do. So I would say yes, that they have to meet those criteria, graduate from high school with at least a 2.0 GPA. The second part of the question as far as how much they will get will be answered in the next slide or two. So it's an excellent question, but just hang on there. And if I don't answer it fully, pop a question back up in just a minute.
I could add one thing too, Steve. I know you'll elaborate on this later, but many times passport students don't actually end up receiving college bound because of the combinations that Steve will explain earlier. So just pay attention to that portion when Steve
all right.
Preview.
Thank you, Carissa.
You're welcome.
We're moving right into that area, which is the how does it all work, and does a student who's a college-bound scholar really get college-bound scholarship funding? And it depends. And we'll look at that. So the first thing, though, is if they are a college-bound scholarship student and they've met all the eligibility criteria, income, etc., or MFI levels, then there is a commitment that they will get based upon the legislature. And, you know, that commitment that's kind of written indicates that the intent is to provide tuition, fee, and money towards books at a public college or public college rate. So here are the actual commitments that have been put into the manual for the 16-17 year. And it shows that at the two research institutions, the average is about $10,500 is the commitment that we need to make every college-bound scholar have, and this is over basically a 9-month academic year. And the comprehensive, the regional colleges and universities, Evergreen, Western, etc., about $7,000. The community and technical colleges, $4,300, and that also includes Perry Tech and Northwest Indian College. And then there are private 4-year colleges, $11,900, and private 2-year colleges about $4,500. So the blue bar at the bottom is really important part, that the CBS award amounts will vary by school and the amount of aid received from other state aid. So the commitment is that these students will get state aid, state grant or scholarship aid from one or more programs. And so state need grant, Passport to College is another one, the Opportunity Scholarship Program, the Opportunity Grant Program. So there are a variety of things that could meet that commitment. So on the award chart, it shows, you know, the maximum SNG and CBS award. This red area shows some examples here, and then I will drill down a little bit deeper with these two circled ones to show how this might, some examples at these two sectors here. So on the award chart, those are the amounts. So now let's take a look at if students were going to community or technical colleges. Remember that commitment was $4,300 for the college-bound scholar. And again, we're looking at this for an academic year, 9 months with. So we could have, I've showed here a half a dozen different examples of what could happen to a student who has that $4,300 commitment. Let's start from the left. And the one on the left, if the student is eligible for state need grant and their MFI level is the 50%, which means it's anywhere from 0 to 50% is their income level. So remember, they're required to get the state need grant first. So in this case, they get the state need grant, and that chart would have been 3541, which is right here. If I know, does this work, this arrow here? Let's see, 3541. So they get 3541. Now, the example here is that this student is receiving an opportunity scholarship. I've made up the amount, but some are higher, some are lower, but the student had $2,000. So now the student's got roughly $5,500 in aid. Their commitment is met for that particular year for the college-bound scholarship student. So there will be no funds in that award out of the college-bound scholarship bucket for that year. Could be a year later, the student doesn't have the Opportunity Scholarship Program, and they might get the CBS funds. So each year is done separately. Second example is a student who has the state need grant. Again, they're a lower income student, and they're a passport to college student eligible for the $4,500. Well, in this case, if they're getting roughly $8,000 in state aid, do they get the college bound scholarship funding? No, but they get lots of state funding, $8,000. So we know that that remains a challenging thing for lots of people to describe that to students. Our staff do the best they can. If you have more suggestions for ways we can do it, even better. But that's the word that our college-bound scholarship folks and people working in the high schools are trying to get, that the commitment is of state aid for students who are college-bound scholars. So now we move to the next series of examples here. And the next three are simply students who don't have any other state aid other than the state need grant, and then they are eligible for college-bound scholarships. So let's take the third one there. The MFI is 50% or less, so they get $35.41 in state need grant, and now they have $759 that they can be eligible for in CBS funding. So on this page, these are the areas right here. They get this combination. The next one we're going to see has this combination with 1821. So it's just a matter of what MFI level, what category are they in, award the proper state need grant amount, see if there's other state aid. If not, then you fill in the rest with college-bound scholarship funding. And so this shows all the students up to the example of the 2175. Now I have gone ahead and shown here one more category way over to the right of a student who is not eligible for the CBS because their MFI is higher than 65%. So let's say it was 68%, which falls in the 70% bucket. In that case, they're eligible for the state need grant amount, and the amount is $1,771, and they get no college-bound scholarship for that particular year. So you do this, obviously, every year it's a new deal, a new beginning, a new FAFSA, a new WSAC, a new determination of need. Now, the initial part, really a college-bound scholar, is fixed, and as Carissa has described, are they okay to award, okay to pay? Yes, that has to remain that way, and if they are, then if they meet the income criteria, etc., they should be eligible. Question?
Yes. The question is from Selena, and it says, can an institution make a policy that prevents CBS students from applying for the opportunity grant?
I'm not sure the answer of that. In terms of that's one handled by community technical colleges. I don't know. So we'll write that down on our list here, and we're going to be meeting, a couple of us, with community technical college folks in a few days, and maybe we'll have an answer for that one. Good question, though. All right, so that was the example using community technical college. Now the next example is same theory, same overall response, but at a higher priced institution. In this case, we're using the University of Washington. So the commitment there is $10,499. And so depending upon how you put together with the other state aid, like in this case, I've shown opportunity scholarship on the left. They don't get the CBS scholarship funding. The next one is passport to college. So in most cases, students who have those combinations of opportunity scholarship and passport probably are not going to get funding in a particular year from the college-bound scholarship, but that it is still uniquely determined. So don't take that as a general rule, but just Probably the majority, it turns out more like this, that it exceeds. In the early years, people wondered if they could not exceed that commitment, and obviously they can exceed it with other state aid, so long as those programs allow that interpretation of it. So again, the same situation here. We're trying in all cases to get the student up to $10,499 with the combination of programs, and there is, again, way to the right, the student who might be at the, whose MFI is the 70% level, who gets a state need grant of $46.74, but does not get the CPS scholarship for that particular year. Okay, so we're ready to turn to another area of just a very brief one on summer awarding of college-bound scholarship and state need grant. And please know that all college-bound students enrolling in the summer must receive their full state need grant and CBS eligibility. So students enrolling in summer terms who are not eligible for CBS are to be awarded SNG if your institution policies require that and if you have funds available. But if they don't, or you don't have funds available, you may instead report them as unserved for the summer period of time. We'll be covering this in greater detail for those of you who may be attending the spring workshops later in April. That we tend to do that the very last part of April. And also know that the manual has good information on the details of summer awarding.
Yes, can I clarify your first point on that? Because I do get a lot of questions about that first bullet.
Right.
Where sometimes it might be your institution's policy that you don't award summer because you want to focus your funds on fall, winter, and spring for your state need grant students. But for college-bound students, if they enroll in summer, you still must award them state need grant, and you need to anticipate those expenditures when you're trying to plan out your funds for the year. Anticipate awarding need grant to your college-bound students for summer.
Good clarification. Anticipate, hold back funding for those students from state need grant. All right. We are moving on now to portal management and tools.
That's me.
Larissa.
Okay, so the WSAC portal, it's a pretty broad tool. A lot of fun things to do in there. State need grant, college-bound, and passport are all administered through Seesaw in the WSAC portal. So if you need portal access, your director can set you up with an account in the portal and will determine what access level you should have for your permissions and the different programs that you might work with. So access may include the following programs or applications: secure messaging and forms, state need grant, college-bound, and passport, WSFA, which is not its own program, but it is its own special permissions area in the portal, as well as unit record reporting. You may also have access to functions such as Seesaw, stands for college-bound, state need grant, award warehouse. You might have access to institution functions, and you can make payment requests in there. If you need help getting an account, or if your institutional administrator or director is unclear on how to add an account for you, you can always email us at the SNG inbox at sng@wasac.wa.gov. So here's a screenshot of the messages and files. This page is full of resources for you. If you go into the portal and you go to the common area and then messages and files, you can see there's different tabs there for college-bound, passport, SNG. This one has Washington Scholars. So depending on your permissions, you will have different tabs. You might have a State Work Study tab if you have access to State Work Study in your permissions. And you can click on these. So this specific one is Documents for College-Bound, where you can click on instructions for the interim report. You can find payment request instructions, etc. So this is a really good resource for you, as well as in addition to the program manual. So college-bound, SNG, and passport too. So when we named Seesaw, passport wasn't included. So we thought about trying to add the P in there somewhere, but we kind of just like Seesaw, but it includes passport too now. You will use Seesaw to manage and request your program funds, submit your interim reports, check out the student award details, and you can also access things like the account status page. There's a really good pre-submission interim report data analysis tool where you can see what your commitments are versus how many, your allocation versus how many awards you have in the system, what your expenditures are, etc. And descriptive data on student records, such as the maximum award amounts and the QER usage for particular students. So here's a preview of the account status page. We tried to model it after the Amazon. One of our IT guys really liked his Amazon statement that he got every month. And so we tried to kind of model it after that. I've actually never seen one. This is what I'm told. But the transactions are listed in date order. And you can sort them by the date process. And you can also download it into a CSV file if you're into that sort of thing. That pre-submission interim report data analysis that I mentioned earlier, an example is shown here. We do provide this tool that you can use before submitting the interim report, so you can see a history of what you've submitted in the past and kind of do a sanity check on your data. So you can see at the bottom, for example, in 2015-16, the percent committed in the winter report was 101.55%. And in 2014-15, it was 97%. So it's not too far off. So if your number was 280%, you might say, maybe something's wrong with my data, and I should go and take a second look before I submit my report. So you can see on the left where it says submit, there's commitments, expenditures. What especially I found helpful for colleges is to look at your served, unserved, and total eligible tabs, because those you can look back and see maybe you have one under the unserved column, and you know that you have more than one student. So really take a look at those before you submit your report, because it's a lot easier to change the data up front than it is to try and change it a few weeks after the interim report is due, and maybe we're using that data to determine allocations. And so it's a lot easier to have the data right the first time instead of trying to maybe discover a mistake later and go back and make adjustments. The student detail screen. There's info buttons throughout Seesaw that provide more detail or might provide more information about what the field is displaying. So here's two examples from that student detail screen. If you just hover over the white eyes, it will show this information. So on the left, we have a QER example where it will show you the breakdown of where that student used their quarters or semesters of eligibility. So this particular student used 2 quarters at Pierce in 2007-2008. They used 3 quarters in Tacoma in 2013-14, again at Tacoma in 14-15, and then UW in 15-16. So it might be helpful if you're helping a student and they say, how am I at my limit? I haven't received state need grant, or where did I use these funds? You can see that history there. The other example on the right is the max award amount, and that if you hover over that eye, it will give you a breakdown of how it came up with that figure. So it'll give you the base amount, it'll show you any MFI reductions, any enrollment reductions, there's any QER reductions, and then give you that final max amount down at the bottom there. So if you're curious of why you think someone's eligible for $1,000, but this only says $627, you can hover over that and see how we got to that figure. We have some other examples. If you hover over the info button, you can see how the max award is being calculated. Oh, actually, I think this might be a duplicate. This is kind of the same thing, it's just in a different area. So you can see this one, this is from the edit screen, or before it was from the student detail. So disbursement procedures. So you must confirm a student's enrollment and eligibility at the time of disbursement. I'm sure you remember yesterday when we talked about the State Need Grant Archive report. So you need to check against the archive, check against the cruncher, make sure the student's eligible before you disperse. So the award must be adjusted or canceled if the student withdraws from the program or reduces the enrollment rate, and adjusting or lowering student awards frees up funds to award other students. Maybe you have an unserved list that once you've cleaned up all of your ineligible students, you can award to your unserved list. I'm going to turn it over to Victor, and he is our requesting funds guru.
All right.
He's going to show you that process.
Good stuff. All right, so I'm going to walk you through on requesting S&G, College Bound, and Passport payments through the portal in Seesaw. So payment requests are submitted via Seesaw under the Request Funds tab in the portal. Payment requests for current academic year cannot be processed until every state new grant participating school is reconciled for the previous year. So that's usually mid to late August. Payments are processed here at the council within 24 hours of receipt, and expect up to 6 business days turnaround from submission to receipt of the payment on your campus. Just what Chris just stated, you must confirm the student's enrollment and eligibility at the time of disbursement, and the award must be adjusted or canceled if the student withdraws from the program or reduces the enrollment rate. 2 methods of requesting funds. Currently, colleges use one of 2 methods to request funds and manage student data. The first method is real-time reporting. Right now, there's more than a quarter of our participating institutions are using this method. The second method is non-real-time reporting, cash requests. Please note that this is the last year this method will be used. All colleges are required to use a real-time reporting method for 17-18 year. And right now there's about 15 CTCs that would need to convert to real-time for next year.
Yeah, if I can just jump in too, yes, yay, it's going to be so much fun. We are talking to the back group, like Steve mentioned, the CTC group here in a couple days, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on this. I believe we also will be offering a webinar this summer for any colleges that still need to convert, as well as we have resources on the web on how to request these funds. So if you're one of the colleges that haven't converted and you're seeing this for the first time, don't freak out. We will help you.
It's a lot of fun.
Keep calm. Real-time reporting.
Depending on the college process, it's either the financial aid office or the business office will execute the process to request funds from the council. And then below here is the differences between the cash request and real-time reporting method. So I'm going to just read across from left to right. For cash request method, upload eligible student data during interim report window. Using real-time, you upload eligible students' data in advance of requesting funds. For cash requests, you request funds in a lump sum with no student data provided. Using real-time, you select students for payment from a list of eligible students populated in Seesaw from the file that you uploaded. Under the cash requests, you address all edits during interim reporting. For real-time, you address edits before requesting payments for served students, unserved students during interim reporting. Under the cash requests, archive is updated in August with award data. For real-time, archive updated real-time for participating colleges. Seesaw data is updated 4 times a year for cash request method. And then for real-time schools, Seesaw data is updated when a new file is uploaded and when payments are made. So quite the difference between the two. So this is the State New Grant College Grant cash request process for non-real-time public institutions. This is a screenshot of what you would see the request funds in the portal under Seesaw. Click on the cash request button there, and then we'll go through Passport in a little bit. So you'll be asked to enter your expenditures, the amount you're requesting for each program, and the dates. These fields must be completed before moving forward. You will receive a red error message if any of the fields are left blank. If you're not requesting cash for a program, please enter 0. So if you're just requesting for S&G, be sure to enter 0s under the request amount for college bound or vice versa. Once complete, click on the submit button. And once submitted, you should receive a message stating that you have successfully submitted your cash request. So, St. Grant College Bound cash request process for real-time institutions. This is pretty much the 5 basic steps. Many of these steps look familiar to you, except for the requesting funds. The rest of the screens and functions are the same as the interim report. Sometimes schools like to switch up options 4 and 5. You can request funds for students that do not have edits attached, and then go back and address the words that have issues. But you don't have to address all the edits at once. The basic steps are you generate a file, log on to the portal, upload your file into Seesaw, address any edits, and review students and request funds. Step 1, generate your file. This file should include all of your eligible students, served and unserved, from your internal financial aid processing system. And of course, you want to save it to your computer. The format is the same format as an interim report file layout. The format can be found in the most recent St. Grant College Bound manual and on our council website that Steve showed yesterday. There's also a file format template in Seesaw located in the upload section. Step 2, I got a typo. Log in into the portal, obviously. If you're still having issues with your login after using the forgot link, please you can contact us for assistance, smg@wsac.wa.gov. Step 3, uploading your file. So once you log in, you want to, from the home page, click on Seesaw, then click on Upload. As I said before, it's the same method you would use to upload an interim report. You're just doing it sooner. The file format and method for uploading are the same. Step 3, you want to browse to wherever your file is saved. The portal will notify you of any issues with your file, such as formatting errors, information messages, etc. during this process. In the event you receive an error or informational notification, follow the instructions provided on the screen to correct the issue. Again, this is no change from your current file upload process from the interim report. So as the file uploads, the status bar will appear in place of the Choose File button to display the upload progress. Your file should include all of your paid and anticipated awards for the entire year. It should also include all of your unserved awards. A new file upload will always replace and update your current data. Awards that were marked as paid on a previous file that are not listed on your new file will be treated as a canceled award. There are no partial file uploads. Your file will always include all awards for all terms. So that's an important thing to remember. Continuing on step 3, after the upload is complete, you can view the file summary below by term. There's also a summary of changes from previously existed data in Seesaw. If you click on the blue plus show changes, I think it's circled here in red, you can see the differences from your previous file. So for example, this one, there's a change in the total amount, 1,757. So that means that your previous file had 1,757 more in awards. So if you have something that looks this way off, 50,000 or something less than what you previously uploaded, then maybe you don't want to save the upload and click on Start Upload and go back to your file and re-upload. But if that's right, then you go ahead and continue and click on the Save Upload there on the bottom. Jumping ahead here. Continue on step 3. If information looks correct, like I said, click on Save Upload. And then the Address Edits button will appear next. Step 4, addressing edits. After loading has complete, you're presented with a list of edits organized into 4 subgroups. First one, S&G edits, college-bound edits, passport edits, if there are any, and general edits. Specific edits listed within the subgroups will be one of 3 types. Non-overridable edit, so data must be corrected and cannot be overridden. Overridable edit can be overridden without data correction. Informational edit, important student notification. So it is recommended that you take care of the edits before you submit for reimbursement for a group of students, but it is not required. Edits on uncertain words do not have to be corrected until the next interim reporting period. Funds cannot be requested for students with overridable or non-overridable edits that have not been corrected. This will also prevent you from submitting an interim report, as you should all know, if edits are not addressed. So eventually you have to address the edit. So once you've addressed edits, you will proceed to the Request Funds section. And you're presented with 3 options. First option is choose all students by term/program. You have an option to upload a list of students from your existing CSOL population, or you can request funds choosing students individually. Option A, this is a quick way to access the students that are ready to be reimbursed. You will be presented with a breakdown of awards by program and term after selecting this option. So you click the checkbox next to the term and program you wish to submit. Once checked, the select amount box on the top of your screen will update. This shows the dollar amount of what is to be submitted. The remaining state new grant balance or college bound balance is also reflected, or not college bound balance, excuse me, just state new grant balance. You want to make sure you verify student award amounts on the screen, and if everything looks okay, you click on I agree, request funds. And remember, awards with outstanding edits cannot be requested until they have been resolved. So they'll be presented in red with no checkbox next to it, meaning that you can't submit those through, and you have to go back to the edit screen to address. Option B is you upload a list of students from your existing CSOL population. So you just got to make sure that you've already uploaded your data on the upload section prior to doing this method. So this is different from the file you uploaded in the upload section, like I said. And it's also, it can either be in CSV or text format, and it's separated by commas, tabs, or new lines. So you just browse to your save file. We have a question here.
Yeah, says, did I miss it, or will there be more information on edits, what they are and what they do and why they are important?
Yes, Carissa will talk about edits here shortly after me. So we browse to your save file. This is still for option B. And paste, you can also copy and paste that sentence into the text box. Click on search. This presents you with a detailed list of students and their award amounts to be reimbursed. It defaults to every student being checked. So it's pretty much the same look as option A. So if everything looks good and every student is checked, then you can click on the I agree, request funds button. Option C is you can choose students individually. So if you just have a one, two, a few, this gives you the opportunity to manually look for student awards. You can either use the search box and search for individual, or click on the SSN/SIDs tabs to search for multiple awards. Same process here. Once you've found your students, you click on Preview and Submit, and it's going to present you with the list of what you just selected to be reimbursed. Again, it defaults to everyone being checked. And if everything looks okay, then click on Request Funds. From what I've heard, option A is the one used the most, so FYI. Passports. So passport funds are not tied to state new grant or college bound. It is requested in Seesaw. And this is after the steps that Steve presented earlier about passport on using the eligibility checker to make sure that they're eligible, and then you would add the awards in Seesaw, and then once you're ready to request funds, you would go here under Request Funds for passport, and you would, under passport, click on Choose All Students by Term. You have 3 options as well for the passport. So if you have 5 awards in there for 5 different students that are ready to be paid for a term, you would just select the first option. It'll be displayed here. So for winter, it's $10,500 ready to be paid. If you click on the Winter Plus section there, it's going to expand and give you the details of the students and their award amounts. So just verify the student award amounts, and once verified, click on I agree, request funds. And that's it for me. So Carissa's going to talk about reporting requirements.
Yes, I am. Okay. So there are some reporting requirements that come with all of these hundreds of millions of dollars. The main reports, the ones for need grant and college bound, are the interim report, and that is there's 4 quarterly reports. They're submitted via Seesaw throughout each award year. So the fall interim report is in November. Winter report is due in February. We have a spring report in May, and the final reconciliation report, which is in the summer, in July. So we use the data that is submitted in those reports for many reasons. We use it to manage state need grant and college-bound funding, redistribute funds, set grant amounts and income cutoffs, and provide basis for reserve distribution. The reports include data for both served and unserved, well, served SNG and CBS students, as well as unserved state need grant students. The system performs eligibility checks on the data. You can upload an updated file from your system within the reporting window. So even if you're on real-time reporting, you do need to upload a new file within, there's like a 3-week window. And I usually send out an email 3 weeks before the interim report is due, just letting you know that the reporting window is open. I usually give you a few tips on how to complete your report. Some of you, if you wait until the last day or the last couple of days to upload your file, I will call you or email you and just ask if you were aware of the due date. Some of you, I know that you like to do it on the last day, and I will still call you. So after the final interim report in July, it serves as a reconciliation report. So the first 3 reports were not really reconciling the money. You might want to use it as a tool on your end to kind of reconcile what you've drawn down versus what your paid awards are adding up to. But WSAC balances those funds in the July report. Any funds left over after all the adjustments have been made must be returned to the council via a check. It is extremely important to accurately and fully report those unserved state need grant students. Again, I know we've covered this a couple times, but I really want to reiterate that unserved students are those who are fully eligible to receive need grant up to the 70% MFI, and they are enrolled, but they cannot be awarded due to a lack of funding. So you should not report a student that has not completed their financial aid file, or who maybe if you're at a CTC, they have an AA degree already. Those students do not qualify as unserved because they're not eligible for state need grant. You should also include your summer enrollees as unserved, even if your institution policy is not to award state need grant for summer. Unserved students should be reported at their attempted enrollment level and not their completed level. Enrolled SNG eligible students that are anticipated to be unserved for future terms should be reported that way on the interim report. They need to be updated, however, if the student's actual enrollment changes. So for the fall report, if you have a student that you're anticipating attending all year, you would report them as unserved for fall, winter, and spring. But after the fall term, if they never enrolled or they dropped their enrollment and they're not going to return, by the winter report, you would remove them. The unserved data contributes towards the amount of SNG reserves your campus will receive. So if you underreport your unserved, you might be shorting yourself on dollars. On the other hand, if you're over-reporting unserved students that aren't actually enrolled or they have some other eligibility issue, you may be receiving more funds than your school should get. So Victor covered this, uploading student information into Seesaw. Report the served SNG and CBS students and unserved SNG students. Be sure to update enrollment statuses of all of your reported students throughout the year. So each upload must be a full file, and it'll replace earlier versions, like Victor said. Address edits during each submission, and that file layout is located in Chapter 4. So here's some tips and tricks to make your Seesaw user experience more accurate and efficient. Doesn't that Seesaw look fun? You can use the canned overrides, which I'll explain in a minute. You can eliminate ineligible unserved students before uploading your file. So if you can check those out before you upload your file, then you don't have to do it in Seesaw. It'll speed up your process. And you can review available reports also, kind of like the ones I mentioned where you can view your trending commitments and served and unserved data. So someone had asked to explain the edits, and I guess we don't really spell that out, but what an edit is when the information that you've provided for a student appears to be breaking the program rules for one reason or the other. So those overridable and non-overridable edits are telling you that you've submitted a data element that's outside the program regulation. So it could be something like students' MFI is above 70%. So maybe you reported a $200,000 figure in the income column. So it's going to give you an edit and say, no, this income is too high. So then you would either go in and reduce the income. You could say, oh, that's not right. It should have been $20,000 and input that, or you would remove the student from your report. So there are several different edits, and there are several different ways to address them, and that's what I'll start to go over here. But I understand that we have a question.
The question is specifically, how do you remove students if they're not eligible?
If I don't show it here in the student detail report or when you're addressing the edits, it gives you options to delete those students. So we'll see on the screenshots that come up if they're there, but when you are addressing edits, you have the option to remove those awards. So the benefits of using the canned override reasons, these are reasons that are the most common reasons why you might override a particular edit, and it will save you time, and it also helps us with consistency because we review every single override that comes in. And so if all of the colleges are saying the same thing the same way, it really helps us save time in reviewing those edits. So it saves you time too with efficiency. You don't have to hand type reasons. Consistency, like I just said, using the same language for each edit, and accuracy. And everybody laughs when I present this at the trainings, but if you don't see the reason you want in the canned override list, there's a good chance your reason isn't valid. So check with state need grant staff if you have an award there. Instead of just typing in, award is correct, if you can't tell what's wrong with it, pick up the phone and just give us a call or shoot us an email, and we can help you identify the problem. So here's some common override mistakes. I'm not going to go through all of these because we only have about 12 minutes left, but for example, the student is okay to pay but not awarded CBS edit. The scenario is there's an unserved record that exists for an ineligible student or a term. So the incorrect override reason would be incomplete file, or the student graduated last term, or student did not enroll. I'm making the typing motions with my fingers. Instead of overriding it, remove the record so that it doesn't show on the interim report. You wouldn't do an override and say they're not eligible. Just tell us they're not eligible by removing them from the system. Review all available canned reasons before selecting the one you want to make sure that the one you select is the best one that describes the reason the student is not awarded. Contact us if you think an override reason should become a canned response. The golden rule for this thing is if you can fix the data to correct an edit, do that. So only do an override if you cannot fix data to satisfy the edit. So for example, change the enrollment status instead of hand typing an override stating was enrolled full-time. Instead, go into the data element and change it to full-time. WSAC does include a list of canned override reasons by edit type in the manual. There's also a unit record report that Anne and Steve here administer. Participation in the state aid programs does require that you submit this report every year after each year has been completed. So it does contain information on all need-based aid recipients at your institution and all federal loan recipients, whether or not they are need-based recipients. So you must submit the data by October of each year. For 16-17, you can submit the unit record after August 15th, 2017, with the final due date of October 20th, 2017. As with the interim report, I do not recommend uploading your file for the first time on October 19th or October 20th, because you'll usually have some edits that you're going to want to work through. And I know that policymakers here are always anxious to try and get their hands on that data so we can provide information to the legislature. Institutional unit record administrators, you are able to obtain report information each year that compares your data with other institutions in the same sector. There's some interesting data there for you as your reward for completing your report. We're going to breeze through these state aid repayments. There's a state aid policy that's in the program manual, so I do advise that you review that. If a state aid recipient leaves a term early, they are required to repay funds. The full policy is in the manual. Private campuses are responsible for repaying WSAC for the repayments, and how they would do that is essentially reduce the award in Seesaw and award those funds to another student. The campus is responsible for overpayments resulting from a calculation error, if it was the institution's error, and repayments for deceased students are forgiven. So another golden rule here for repayments is that as soon as you have determined a student owes a repayment and you've calculated it, you need to enter something into the portal so that they're flagged on the archive so that they don't go to another school and receive funds. So either mark them as in repayment if you want to refer them to us to bill, or mark them as institution to bill, meaning that you want to flag them on the archive, but you are collecting the funds on your own at the college. Those institution to bill repayment accounts are temporary records that are just flagging the student, so there's no debt amount attached to them. It's just a flag, and that you'll want to remove those once you know a student has paid in full, because if you don't do anything with them or follow up on them, you could be showing the student as ineligible if they're trying to go to another college. They might be skipped over. So it's really important to stay on top of those lists. For institution to bill students who make payments to the college, you want to reduce the award that you're reporting to WSAC by the amount of the payments received. You can award those collected funds to other eligible students as long as you collect them within the academic year. So don't accept payments from students past June 30th of the academic year, and refer account balances to the council for billing no later than August 31st after the close of the year. So you want to stop receiving payments June 30th, and by August 31st, refer any balances to us. If the student pays in full during the year, remove that record. I already talked about how important it is to timely refer these to us, and as well as timely remove them, remove those institution to bill. You can manage both types of repayments accounts in the receivables area of Seesaw. So you can search by students, you can view their records, you can make changes, you can change their debt amount, etc. There's some changes you can make and some you can't. If you are trying to do something in the system and you can't figure out how to do it, Katie Guthrie is our receivables coordinator, and you can email repayment@wasac.wa.gov or contact Katie Guthrie and she can help you out. I'm also not going to walk through these slides on how to manage the institution-to-bill accounts. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you do need help with it, let us know. You can cancel receivables. You can delete or modify a receivable in Seesaw. It'll ask for a reason for canceling. You might get a follow-up call from Katie Guthrie if she reviews that reason and it doesn't seem legit. So just type in the reason there, and if we need to follow up, we will. We do have some additional resources for you in administering these programs, and Steve is going to talk to you about those.
Okay, thank you, Carissa, very much. The next several slides. This one, for those of you on the webinar yesterday, I showed this on our website live. I'm not going to do that right now, but the best thing I think is for you to spend some time on our website and really just poke around, particularly this section called administration, because there are all sorts of resources there for financial aid administrators. This is the kind of the drill down that most financial aid administrators use quite frequently, showing our manuals, MFI charts, and so forth. Where the blue arrow to the right is, we will be adding, probably in another month or 6 weeks when we complete the 17, 18 manuals, we'll be adding that and letting everybody know that the new manuals are out. In the meantime, keep reviewing the 16, 17 manual. Most things will not change. The award charts will once we hear from the legislature. And the SFA partner, we always post that, and the old editions are in there as well in an archive section. So if you have any suggestions, too, for improvements on this, we're always glad to hear, because we want this to be a very good tool for you. This is the Ready, Set, Grad website, one of the pages. This is really kind of a landing page when you may remember for the conditions of award, one of the things in there, it spells out that there's a pathways link. This is a legislative required one to provide some kind of state financial aid counseling. So when they hit that link, they go to this particular page. I mean, you can get there from different ways, but it has all sorts of good information about the state programs and other programs of assistance. This is a great resource for all Washington students to apply for the washboard.org. Victor Fernandez does a lot of work with this in terms of working with scholarship servicers, and we highly recommend every student take advantage of this. It's one of those things that if you don't apply, you won't get anything. If you do apply, you might. This has millions of dollars that students are getting every year through a free, reliable scholarship search. So poke around on that, have your students put it on your scholarship boards or websites as well. And to learn more about financial aid programs, this is probably thumbnail sketches and probably used by parents, by legislators, and so forth, but you can find out just a bit more by looking at a wide variety. It covers the bigger programs that we've talked about today, State Need Grant, College Bound, Passport, but also has lots of very important programs like our targeted workforce programs and aerospace loans, alternative routes to teaching, etc. So you can't go wrong by spending time looking at this website here. Lastly, we have listed here the majority of staff that are involved in these programs for the ones we've talked about today. Certainly you've met Carissa and Victory here, and hopefully you've met them at other times. They are excellent persons at being able to problem solve your payments and your edits and all these things that make the job go better to be able to help your students get the money they need it when they need it. Kelly Olson is a new person on our staff. You'll get to meet her before too long. She's going to deal with these programs and WSAC assistance. Don Cipriano McCafferty is our program manager for Passport to College. He does a terrific job with helping foster youth. Becky Thompson, our director. You'll see her at the spring workshops. A great person who works right now very much in the legislative scene, trying to help get more funds for our students for next year. And although Ann's name is not up there, Ann Boyles, she's a member of the team, doesn't do directly scholarship and grant administration, but invaluable resource for us. So we are at the end of the line. Please feel free, though, to remember that we're here to work with you, to serve you, to help you with your questions. Although email is always a great way to ask your questions, there is a time and a place where phone call works well, too. I think Carissa mentioned that sometimes you say, I want to call Jerry, I want to call Carissa, try to get this resolved ASAP. So last thing is to say we will be sending you copies of the PDF copies of the 2 PowerPoints from yesterday and today, and we encourage you to review those. If you have more questions, let us know. Other than that, we're about ready to say goodbye. Any last-minute words from our esteemed presenters here?
I'm going to ask if anyone had any additional questions, maybe. If not your last chance, you can always send us an email if you don't want to ask them now or we're out of time. But contact us really anytime. Contact the team if you have questions, comments, feedback, anything. We're here for you.
Thank you very much. Happy awarding, and thanks for the good work you do for your students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.